So we're using the same data file, but notice the application is going to change. This time, we're going to see what the overall class average is. Now, where is that in the file? Now, again, remember, I got to look at the file first before I can do any coding. It's the same file that we just did, but this time, for average-wise, we're looking to look at column number 2 and all these values that we're looking for. Now, what's going to happen is notice my numbering index right here. I'm ignoring everybody else. Index 0, index 1, forget about it. I don't need them at all. I do need index number 2, though. So how am I going to grab that is actually very easy. Remember that one line of previous exercise, data was there. It collected from the line, but we didn't do anything with it. Data is every single time we get data from the line is broken up into a list, we just ignore index 0. We just ignore index 1. We just ignore index 3. The only thing that we end up grabbing is index 2. Every time we go through a new line, we save that index 2 into a variable and add them together, do some type of summation, and go from there. So notice I can't ignore data in a list. It's pretty easy to do. We just don't reference it at all. Index 1, 0, 1, and 3. We don't worry about them at all. So you'll see that in the next code here. But again, the important part is design. It's all planning first. So that's why I have to look at the data file, see how it's laid out, notice that it is multiple lines, knowing that I'm going to need a loop, very similar to what we just did. So a couple of questions, or things, items here that we need. We know we need item 2. We need to place a list in, or that item after each line is read. Use the mean function, mean list function. There may be some other ways. And then we're going to print the result at the end of it. So notice, I'm planning everything out here first before we get into the code. And you got to do that when it comes to file I/O. Otherwise, you're really going to be treading water for quite a while. So let's see what it looks like. So here is the running portion of that application that we want. I want you to notice, forget the highlighted orange stuff right now, but notice overall that for loop, the closing, everything else was exactly what we had in the previous exercise. And by the way, it's a completely different application, even though it's using a very similar data file. It's using the same data file. But the application is very different this time. So you'll notice a couple of things here. Number one, from statistics, I'm importing a mean. You don't have to do it that way. I'm frankly being lazy, but you can end up doing the mean if you wanted to in some other function. I did a lazy. There's going to be a function right there. Print mean of the average. Waha, and done. Sweet. Now, you could have done this, the print the sum. So either one works out, but at least want to give her that first. Number two, what's happening again is that every time I grab a value from specifically the list called data of index 2, remember I need to grab that each time, that's basically what's happening right here, of index 2, I'm throwing it into a list. So that's what my averages is. It's a list. It's going to house all of the values that were at index 2 for every single line in the file. So you know what the for loop's going to do. We've done that before. You know what this strip is going to do. You know what the split is going to do right here with the data. So data now has it in individual indices. All I want is index number 2. That's why you don't see index 1, 3, whatever. It's not in here. I only want index number 2. So at data index 2, I have to convert it to a float. Okay, that's the first step. Then I'm going to append it into averages. So in reality, if we were to go through the entire list here, so I'm going to scroll back up to the data file here, it should have 68.9, 78.9, 99, 34, 45, and I think there's a couple that I've removed. So it should have all of those values inside of that list. So when we're done with getting all of the data, notice I appended it to averages, I'm going to close the file, and this is where I can get away with some of the list functions, thank God for Python list functions, in order to go ahead and, well, do what you need to do for calculating the mean of that list. So I'm going to pause here, but your exercise is next.